So once again, welcome everyone. And as I said, this particular lecture has been recorded for many reasons because I'm actually going to be doing some writing on this. But I also want you to have this as something to reflect on. I'm going to give you a copy of this, and I'm also going to post a copy of the one I did last year, that the presentation I did last year that was the root of this work. So I'm going to give. So before I'll get into that, I'll just get into some preliminaries, and I'm using that word intentionally because I'm going to make some connections. So I want to do a land acknowledgement for this recording. So we acknowledge the traditional territory on which we gather today. For thousands of years, the land on which the University of Toronto operates has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit River. Today, this meeting place is still home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. In moving towards reconciliation, we seek a restoration of the relationship between the original and the settler peoples of this land, one based in honor and deep respect. And as I think about this conversation today, and I start with a land acknowledgement, and I'm going to ask a lot of questions in this presentation for you to take an opportunity to reflect on, is as we think about this topic, we ask ourselves, why do we do land acknowledgements? Why do we do things that are symbolic and that they are important? And have we gotten carried away with symbols? Are we satisfied only with symbolism? So I did that on purpose because I want us to start to think about that, and how are we doing this work? And as you come as a student at OISE and a teacher in school, and you go every day and you're going to be having the opportunity, I use the word opportunity, to share a land acknowledgement. Have you thought about why you're saying it? Or are you just reciting because everybody else recited? Are you conscious of what you're saying? When you when you use certain phrases and certain framing, like for instance, you say today this meeting place. Today this meeting place. What does that place mean for you? When you say you seek a restoration of relationship. When somebody like myself says, I am a settler on the land. I am a visitor to the land. What does that mean? Are we just co-opting terminologies, words, are we saying them? And this is followed with something that is very important to me, Tommy. And the very first time I saw what many people are finding the right term for, people will say Black land acknowledgement, right? That's really not what it is. And people will say ancestral acknowledgement. So you're going to hear a lot of words coming up with that. People will say many things, and this came out of maybe Black History Month, people doing this following the land acknowledgement, because what we want to also remember when we are in certain spaces is that we are not here because we willfully came here. Our ancestors was dragged to this land, came here as slaves, and so that is going to go into my presentation today, into this recording. And another question I have for us again is why we need a reminder, why we do this. Why is this reminder important? The first time I experienced this very one, and if you notice, this is 2020. I have seen maybe 6 or 7 afterwards. One of the most powerful one I have seen, Tommy, is one done by Professor Roberta at Dalai Lama School. I have seen used by the Center for Black Excellence at TDSB. I have seen some done by Hamilton District School Board. I think it was one done by what is her name? It will come back to me, but one of the person there who is Tennille Warren, one of the director of equity there. And I can tell you many instances I have gone through where I have seen this. The first time I experienced this, as you can see, is 2020, COVID, George Floyd, anti-Black history, Black conversations. Right? And we are positioning ourselves to push back And so I want to read this one. As people of African descent, we offer this land acknowledgement in solidarity with the indigenous people of Turtle Island in the efforts and deliberate intentions towards decolonization. We acknowledge the land of Turtle Island that was never meant to be owned. We recognize that most of the land that was entrusted to the indigenous people was in some cases shared by choice, but all too often taken by force. We recognize the historical colonialism and ongoing colonialism that has led to the present day situation. Where land acknowledgements are offered in place of land. As people of African descent, many of us have come here by choice, while many are here as a result of historical force. We acknowledge the complexities. I want you to understand this, where we were promised land that was never given by those whose it never was to give. It's a deep sentence. As people of African descent, we acknowledge the land of Turtle Island that sustain us, express deep gratitude to its indigenous people, and pledge to honor our dignity and divinity that ultimately connects us all. And my question for myself as I did this was, what was I feeling when I saw things like recognize historical colonialism and ongoing colonialism? What does that look like? That's another question I have, because in this paper that I'm going to write, there'll be tons of questions, more than answers, because the truth is I am deliberate in asking myself and you tons of questions, because the truth is the answers are yet to be found. And we are wrestling with the answers. And this is what education is about. You're supposed to have these tensions with what the responses are. And so we acknowledge the complexities. Too often we are hearing Black people are asking themselves what's happening within our community when we see the work has been co-opted and stolen by our own Black people to give to persons whose work is not, who's not. We see in ways that we have favored other communities than ourselves. We see in ways that Black people will say, well, I've never experienced racism or microaggression. We see the ways in Black people have centered themselves in ways where they have been used by white supremacists to do the work of anti-Blackness. I've always said it, that there's somebody who ran to tell Massa that the slave was escaping. I've always said that. And so it comes to our presentation today. Who are you without colonization? What I love about this lecture and why, and I'm going to give you the background to it, is that we are talking about Black identity. We're talking about Black pedagogy in this course. We're talking about freedom dreaming. How are you going to freedom dream if you don't understand your history? How are you going to have a clear sense of your identity when there sometimes is a refusal for you to ask yourself, who are you without colonization? How are you going to understand what abolition is, which I love to get to when people talk about, well, my pedagogy is abolitionist. Tell me about abolition. My pedagogy is emancipatory. Tell me about emancipation. Emancipation from what? And so these are questions that I am happy, I'm troubled with. These are questions that I am happy and okay to have tensions with. These are questions that when I lie down to sleep before I get to bed, that I can take 5 minutes to think about, and they may keep me up for an extra 10 minutes. But I'm okay, because I can tell you that the process of dealing with those questions have allowed me to frame my responses in very, very healthy ways. And so I'm going to give you the background to this. Last year, I was invited by Professor Clelia Rodriguez to present at an event called Seeds for Change. You can Google it and look at it and see the work that is being done. And I was invited to make a presentation. I had just come back from Ghana. And the question, she called me one day and she said, I have the topic for you. In my mind, I've already decided on my topic. I've already decided what I want to share, how I want to frame my conversation. And when she called me, she said, I have homework for you. And I smiled. And she said, when you come to present, here is your topic. Who are you without colonization? And so I smiled and I said, okay, and I hung up the phone. And that question didn't leave me for about 2 weeks. It came to me in so many ways. I started looking at things and understanding. I literally started situate myself in this question. And the more I situated myself in the question, absolutely, I see your comment, Tommy. The more I situated myself in the question, the more I had questions. So for me, this is not an easy question to answer. It is a journey. And as I engage in reflection, the lyrics of two great singers resonated with me. One of them, Tommy, is Bob Marley. When he says, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind. And when he put that demand on me to say, none but ourselves, I've seen so many ways where we have been dependent on others to work on our freedom of our mental freedom, and it doesn't work. The next song, the songs remind me again of the work on self that is needed. I have always been a work on self person. Always been a work on self person. There are so many forces outside of ourselves that we fight every day. And I do believe these are of a lesser impact. Microaggression, anti-Black racism, homophobia, deficit thinking, you name it. But I can tell you the inside sources and forces are even worse. The assumptions of who you are, the stereotypes, that the assumptions and the stereotypes that you and I have come to believe is true, and we believe that they are so true, we act on them. When somebody says to you, well, you can't do this, without even realizing you just have given up and you have denied yourself of the ability and the opportunity to do it. When somebody says, well, there's no Black people there, you don't see yourself as, well, the first Black person is going to be there. And so this level of being trapped in not knowing who we truly could be and would be without colonization, it has forced us to dream less, to be less, to desire less, to challenge less, to show up less. And so when I ask myself these questions, what it does for me, it allows me to do the opposite. It allows me to show up more. It allows me to ask more, to question more, to be more. I literally can tell you genuinely from my heart that I have done so much work on myself. I see the benefits in so many other areas of my life, including relationship, including so many things, because I'm working from a place of joy and healing. I say this without boasting, but it's not about, but you need to declare it. I am healthy. And I've said this with tears running down my eyes because I've examined my inside and realized the health, how healthy I am mentally, socially, physically, emotionally, because I've faced questions that many of us refuse to face. I have unpacked them. So the danger we have come to believe of who is deserving and the dignity and respect and love and care, and that is a danger, because many of us, we do not even realize we deserve certain level of respect and dignity. So here's some more questions I have for you, Ryan. Who is deserving a seat at the table and who needs to beg for a seat? We have become so wired to believe the lie that we have told for years. So instead of walking into a room with a level of surety that you deserve a seat and a seat is reserved for you, we walk with a level of timidity, trying to figure out, will I get a seat? So the work must be done on the inside, Tommy, because even when the seat is there, Many of us, we walk into a room and we see the seat, but we question, is that seat for me? Should I be sitting here? And sometimes we have robbed ourselves so much time. We'll say, no, it's okay, okay, I'll sit over there. Ask yourself, have you denied yourself of things that you believe as a Black man, a Black woman, a Black person, a Black trans man, a Black trans woman, a Black non-binary, a Black 2S LGBT, a Black Muslim, a Black Christian, whatever you are, a Black mother, a Black woman, a Black father, a Black child, a Black professor. Ask yourself, have I denied myself certain things because of not knowing who I am in my fullness? When you go to places and you hear people talk about they are trying to show up as their whole self, these are not children. These are adults. Because we have worked at peeling away ourselves in so many ways that now we are learning how to show up as our whole self. And it's a journey. My word again. So for me, it started with questions about who I am, about Blackness, about history, about Black joy, about resistance. Today, I remember being at Congress 2023 and listening to Michelle Jean and listen to her talking about the history of Haiti. And listen to her, going back into history and seeing how many people, you can see the level of aha moment that is happening. Because if you ask people what they know about Haiti, is that they'll tell you what they know about Haiti. And what they know about Haiti is it's the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. And Haiti never seems to get their shit together, and Haiti had an earthquake. That's what many people know about Haiti. Do you understand what Haiti did for revolution, Black revolution? Do you understand why Haiti is poor? Do you realize that Haiti is living with the consequences of saying, I don't want to be decolonized? And for many of us, it's easier to just do it the colonized way. Because the truth is, people ask me all the time about my resistance. And I say, well, this is harder. It's easy to just get along, just go along to get along. It's easy. If I go to some meetings and I just nod and smile or just say nothing and just sip my water, drink my coffee, my life would be fabulous. Because the truth is, sometimes they don't even care what you have to say. But the moment you raise your hand and you open your mouth and you disrupt something, then now it's a problem. So the decision to know who you are without colonization, it is yours to decide. So the next major song, the next song that comes to my mind is Lauryn Hill. And the lyrics of Lauryn Hill when she says, I get out. If you ever listen, if you want a song to listen to tonight, listen to that one. Lauryn Hill, I get out. And when she said, I get out of all your boxes, when she goes deep into understanding why she needs to get out, and she talks about how it has affected her internally when she have no idea that she could get out of this box. And now she said, the lies I've been told why I'm in this box. And so you have to ask ourselves, who are we? But here's something else I want to point. Here's another part of the question. And remember, feel free to type your comments into the box. Remember, we are recording, but type your comments and anything you want to say in the chat as I go along. I look at every single thing you say because that also pushes me into the conversation. Here's I'm going to pull up as well, Rayan, that came to me just today. When I say today, I mean today. I mean today, May the 31st. I'm driving home from Congress, and I know I'm going to present tonight. I'm going to be teaching. This is going to be my lecture. And something came to me. Because the Seed for Change invited the speakers who are Indigenous and Black, I asked myself, would this question also be asked of a white person? And as I'm driving, I said, would a white person should a white, not would, but should a white person also have a discussion with themselves to say, who am I without colonization? And I want to tell you what I got from it. This is fresh off the mental press of DR.ABC. My answer was yes. Because many white people are struggling with when we say white privilege. Well, where does that privilege comes from? What is the root of that privilege that you refuse to acknowledge? Some of you refuse to acknowledge you have. When we talk about systems of whiteness and systematic racism, who benefits from systems and systematic racism? Whiteness. So who are you without colonization? I always make this statement. I said when slavery was abolished, and goes back to 80 conversation, goes back to our conversation. Even when slavery was abolished, there are parts in America and parts of the world that people were not told. So they continue working. That's history. Check the history. And then when after people were told, and then they came up with laws and the way black people were criminalized for anything just to go back to prison so they could provide labor. You have to understand what has been happening with our ancestors and what has impacted our history and the trauma. And so I used to always ask this question when I do workshops about anti-black racism. I said, I hope you realize that there are black people going up and down every day that we still suffer from the impact of slavery 400 years. And somebody may look at me and I said, well, let me give you the flip side. Since you kind of can't figure out that, let me give you the flip side. Do you realize that there are grandchildren and great-great-great-great-grandchildren living among you and I who are still reaping the benefits of their ancestors and their parents who were slave owners? The money just didn't disappear. France, slave owners, when Haiti abolished, was given millions for their loss, for property loss. It happened to a lot. All these white slave owners were given insurance. So when you hear black people talk about reparation and people open their mouth and talk garbage about what we deserve or what we don't deserve, we deserve. White people were given, paid for their loss. Trauma, I see your comment there, Ryan, is transitional. And so, for me, this is important. And as you do your work as an educator, why is this important? Why is this lecture so intentional place in this class? Because as you do your work, you have to remember you are not just one black teacher in the middle of the world standing by yourself. You are black person in context with who you are in so many ways. And so one of the things I like is Toni Morrison when she reminds us the function, the very serious function of racism is distraction. That's why so many of us are distracted. It keeps us from doing your work. It keeps you explaining over and over and over again your reason for being. So I'm going to share something very, very, very important with you. I do the work of equity, diversity, inclusion, racial justice, blah, blah, blah. That's what I do. And there are quite a bit of video of me on social media out there. Sometimes if you look in my inbox, you'll be surprised. Right now, if you look at my DR.ABC Teachable Moment Facebook page, not my personal, my public Facebook page, Teachable Moment to DR.ABC, you will see a whole bunch of racist comment that has been hurled at me in the last 2 days. I can tell you I am not moved. I can tell you genuinely I am not moved. And I know people who do this work and they go on their social media and they read those comments and they cry. I am not moved. I almost cursed just now, just so you know. I am not moved because I understand the function of racism. Sometimes we expect white supremacists to behave nice. You can't behave nice if that's what your job is. we expect racist systems to act in anti-racist ways. It's a racist system. It do what it do. It do what it do. A snake is made to what snake do? Bites, hiss? That's what they're gonna do. And so you have to ask yourself, what will I do as my response? And I'm going to give you one of my favorite tips, Natasha, that people do ask me. Black people who do the work that I do ask me, Dr. ABC, pull you aside privately. Tell me how you take care of yourself doing this work. And I say there are certain conversations I don't engage in. So if you see me on social media, you'll notice my post to all the hatred has been about 15 rainbow flags and all the love art in every color. And I disturb them. So right now they're pissed because every time they say something racist, I just cut and paste the whole bunch of pride flags and trans flag and a bunch of love and just paste it. Just paste it. Because what I'm not going to do, Natasha, watch me carefully, is type a paragraph to explain myself to no one who's racist. And I'm going to tell you something, they don't care about your response. And the sooner you learn that, you don't stop and spend 2 hours of your day arguing with somebody who's racist or homophobic. So we have to understand about the self-care, the need to continue. We have been doing that in many ways. Bell Hooks reminds us, sometimes people try to destroy you precisely because they recognize your power, not because they don't see it, but because they see it and they don't want it to exist. We have to understand when it comes to this conversation about race, that it's also about power. When it comes to conversation about white supremacy, it's about power. When we wonder why we don't have persons working more in solidarity, it's because of that power structure where somebody has to win and somebody feel the need that they have to be in charge. So we don't really work together in solidarity because you have to be above me. So here's my next set of questions, Natasha. What if we decide to move away from the need to explain who we are? What if we decide to be intentional about how we show up in spaces like I am, like I'm learning to do and I'm doing better every day? What if we use the power of self and knowing to decide how we navigate academic spaces? What if we decide that the norm is not our norm? Do you know, let me give you a good hypocritical academic situation, Natasha. Do you know how many of us, we hear, oh my God, there's a course being offered about decolonizing education. Everybody wants to go to that course. Because everybody wants to decolonize education. You turn up to the course and the professor who is indigenous is teaching you and I in a decolonized way. And the first thing we do, we report the professor because we're not getting what we want. True story, I see it happen to an indigenous professor. You, as a white person, a non-indigenous person, including Black students, try to take a course on decolonization of education. And in that decolonization class, you are demanding to learn in colonized ways. I hope people listen to this video afterwards, because of course, I share it with you. For me to say this to you, stop the foolishness. Stop the foolishness. You have not even taken a breath to say, what am I asking? What am I demanding of this indigenous professor to teach me in colonized ways? That's why I come to this course. So the university, many of the universities are offering all kind of decolonized work, but it's being done in a colonized way. Just like how we are offering anti-Black racist work, but it's being done in an institutionalized way. So you ask yourself, who am I without colonization? Can I get to do it without it? Can I get to breathe and do it without? So that's why for me, I'm intentional about the readings, the books, the stories, the assignments, how I'm doing it, and more to find ways to do it, ways in which it's move away from so many of what we know is to be education. Have we decided the route that is what we will take? I know as you're reading and listening to me, your body's already in fear of some of the questions you're asking yourself because you know nothing else but that. I am one of those persons. Think about the things that you wear. I always make a joke, and I said, if I ever go back to Jamaica and I be a principal, the first thing I'll do is change the school uniform. But I grew up in Jamaica, going to high school, Kingston College, wearing a shirt and a pants and a tie. The hottest of days, I'm in a necktie, sweating, but that's what we are taught. And there are principals right now, we're still maintaining that. And it just occurred to me especially when I went to Ghana, why on God's earth on this hot day we're supposed to be in that kind of clothes? But what we're given, and so we're doing this work. Have you discovered your power? My next question. We were not taught about our powers. Nobody could tell you as an ancestor who was in slavery or as Black people. We don't get taught about our powers. No, we get to teach. We are taught about how to ask permission, how to ask for something, how to wait your turn. You know, I remember growing up in Jamaica, and this is something that I'm going to write in the book. I remember growing up in Jamaica. There's something that we were taught, and Ryan, you will remember this. You were said we should be seen and not heard. You know, I get it. You know, seen and not heard. And another thing was, if you do not praise yourself, let somebody else praise you. And, wait until your turn. The level of things we were taught about what humility is garbage. Some of these things that we were taught about, that is what humility is garbage. And then we came to North America and realized it doesn't work like that. People push and select their own and volunteer themselves and put their name and put their hands up and ask for their portion. The first time I heard that you could negotiate your salary was when I came to Canada. I don't know you could negotiate salary. Negotiate salary. People give you what they're going to pay you. And somebody said, yes, even when there's a pay scale, you could negotiate. I said, you cannot negotiate a pay scale. Somebody said, yes, you can. There's so many things we don't know because we have never asked or we never thought of it as possible. And ask yourself how many times you have stumbled on a possibility and it came from someone who was not racialized. We are not taught to act and work in our power. No, that is for the colonizers. We carry those things today. We carry those kind of silence today. We carry those kind of fear today. I grew up in Jamaica, as I said to you, in the church. And we are fully wrapped in the attitude and culture of colonial and oppressive ways. Walking in my power in a church I grew up in would mean I would be haughty and vain. That are the word they would use if I walked in my power back home in the church. They would say, you're haughty, you're vain, you're proud, you're arrogant. And God does not like that. Our ancestors were told to obey our masters. Our ancestors were dragged to church on a Sunday. You watch any film, they would show you that you were dragged to church on a Sunday to obey your master, the same master that raped you and abused you and beat you and took away your children and sold them and rape your husband and rape your wives and give you nothing and treat you like garbage. On a Sunday, you were told to obey that same master. The level of submission that were taught to us. That's why certain words I don't use. I see a lot of people use certain words. I'm just very, very intentional about certain words. In this, and we are and get ready for this, Natasha. We are perpetuating some of these same things today. You go to some of these poorest church in the Caribbean and in some parts of Africa, and the preacher lives in a house bigger than the church. I'm talking facts I can prove to you. The leader lives in a house bigger than the church, and all that money came from the poorest of people in the church who are poor. We have, watch me carefully now, Natasha. We have learned from the oppressor how to oppress each other. Write that down. We have learned from the oppressor how to oppress each other. I pause and I ask the question, who are you without colonization? So, as I went into this conversation, I got to my favorite part. And my favorite part of this conversation is the freedom dreaming. And I quote from Chung 2022, what are your freedom dreams for education? What are your students, especially marginalized students, freedom dreams for their worlds? And how do you know? How would education feel, look, sound, and work in your freest dreams? Can I tell you something? This very sentence, I actually plan to use next time I offer this course as an assignment. I want you to write an essay. Well, not you, you're done. But the question I want you to answer is, what would education feel, look, sound, and work in your freest dreams? Imagine that. I would love to have the opportunity. I would love to have the opportunity to hear from students and teachers and myself about what it would look like in your freest dreams. What can you do to change? And we are growing, we are growing. Funny enough, Ray, and I tell you something that I discussed with a bunch of teachers this morning, yesterday evening. We had this very discussion yesterday, was how many of us have grown as educators and we have changed so much things. I remember years ago, 15 years ago, if you were absent from any course or sick or you want a 2-day extension, you literally had to write 4 paragraphs or 3 to tell us why. Tell us all your personal business. If you're a woman going through, your menstruation, or if you got fired, if you're hurting, if you had abuse. I have had students 20 years ago, 15 years ago, write me letters to say why they need 2-day extension, and they poured out all their private business. Send me doctor note, I know what kind of doctor they're going to, all those kind of things. Because that's what the system says. Now I don't care. And any student could tell you, I have never asked a student for those kind of information. They said to me, Dr. Campbell, I need 2 days extension. And I said, I literally don't even reply with all kind of stuff. I just reply with the word granted. I trust you to be honest about that. I don't need to know all the stuff going on in your house, because what I'm doing now is putting you to extra work again to explain yourself to me. How would education look, feel, sound, and work in your freest of dreams? What can you do and change with your roles? That's a big one for us who are educators already. Position and resources right now. What is in your power now to get us closer to that dream? Oh my God, I love this quote. I believe that as educators, we fight for not only the freedom of our students, but also the freedom dreams of our students. This means ensuring that our students are safe and protected in a sense of complete belonging. Now, I hope you get the tie, Natasha, with what I said before to now, because you cannot even understand if belong if you don't know who you are. Because I've seen people say, well, I want to belong. And I said, belong where? And they don't know where. I want to show up as myself. Well, what would that look like if you show up as yourself? Write that down somewhere for me in your reflection when you're ready to reflect. A year from now, a day from now, a month from now. Put it somewhere. You said you want to show up as your whole self, a term everybody's using. Well, what does it look like, Ryan, to show up as your old self? What does it look like, Karen? Michelle, what does it look like to show up as your old? Can I tell you something? Do you know how ashamed many people was in school years ago to say you're a mother, you're a parent? Oh, students would do that. Students would do that. But now we are making sure people understand it's okay to introduce yourself and say, well, I'm a PhD student and I'm a mother. It's you who you are. You're a Black woman, you're a student, but you're a mother. And people should look at you funny, like almost like, why are you here? So we have to talk about this. This also means ensuring that our students are empowered as autonomous co-creators of their education and worlds. Think about this. What does it look like? You know, I want to use the words of the song by Lauryn Hill when she said, I get out. And she says, your stinking resolution is no type of solution. And that sentence, I thought she was a little bit rough when I read it first. I go, well, this is rough, Lauren. And then she said, your stinking resolution is no type of solution. And that goes back to just showing you how sometimes we allow whiteness and systems to give us a solution when we realize, and only after a while, when after we have tried to realize, well, the solution is no resolution. I've been trying this solution, it's not working. Because the system can't tell you how to unpack the system, the system's not going to teach you how to destroy the system. And then she goes on to say, preventing me from freedom, maintaining your pollution. And this is where I love when she says, I won't support your lie no more. I won't even try no more. If I have to die, oh Lord, that's how I choose to live. I won't be compromised no more. I can't be victimized no more. I just don't sympathize no more, because now I understand. She has come to a place of understanding. As she says, the system, your resolution is no type of solution. She understands that as somebody who has come from living in a colonial space, it's not going to free itself. It's not going to free you from it. You have to be that intentional self-emancipation. And so we go back to Bettina Love. We go back to Bettina Love, intentional in this work. And she said, when you understand how hard it is to fight for educational justice, you know that there are no shortcuts, no gimmicks. You know this is true deep in your soul, which brings you frustration and determination. So remember when I said to you that 5 minutes before bed, sometimes it's 2 minutes of frustration, but it's always 3 minutes of determination. Educational justice is going to take people power, driven by spirit and ideas of folks who have done the work of anti-racism before somebody who is abolitionist. So if you walk into the classroom and you have the idea of doing this work as an abolitionist teacher, an emancipatory teacher, a teacher whose pedagogy is rooted in liberation, freedom, and love, you have to work on yourself first. I'm going to repeat that for somebody. If you are going to show up in a classroom, Natasha, as this teacher who wants a freedom dream for your kids, you want to teach in abolitionist way, emancipatory way, you want to teach with love and understanding and freedom, you yourself have to work on yourself, because you can't give what you don't have. You can't offer what you don't know. And that's the problem. A lot of people trying to offer what they don't know. They walk in, they want to do work, but they don't embody it. I see people saying, oh my God, I want to write about Black joy. You are miserable. You have to know what Black joy means to you. You have to understand. I see that one. Karen, is it true? I see Karen, you're laughing like me, Karen. You people were, oh my God, I'm so full of Black joy. Every 5 minutes, you're so distraught. You have to understand, like, oh, I've learned how to cultivate that Black joy. Because you know what we have done, Natasha? We have depended on so many others outside of us to maintain that Black joy. I'm going to be frank with you. My Black joy is not dependent on none of you. But I'm going to tell you this. My Black joy is enhanced by every one of you. Guarantee. Guarantee. You in my class as my student, you have enhanced my Black joy. When I see your work and I read it, I was reading some of the draft and I just smile. My Black joy was just good. But you did that. You add to my Black joy. But I'm coming to you with joy, Natasha. I'm entering the space with Black joy. And as I do that, I am very big on the idea of freedom dreams. I want to share some more stuff with you in this work about who are we. So this you see right here, I want to share this story. And then when I give you the next video, and you get time to watch it, you'll get more of this in the first video that I made, that I was just sharing about my trip to Ghana. And when I say to you, dream, that's an entire section of the paper I'm writing. Dream, that's you, Natasha. I want you to dream, and then I want you to do something. Invite others to dream along with you. I want you to remember, when it comes to us, we are a community. We are the one to talk about community. So invite others to dream along with you. Community. We can't exist without community. This is who we are. We were never supposed to be so desperate for power that we would destroy each other as we fight for the crumbs being thrown at us in many academic spaces. We have become so used to be the only one. We have romanticized and given value to tokenism. How many times you hear people say, well, I'm the only black person in my school, I'm the only black person, and whatever. I remember I had an experience with a student who trusted me and, and said to me, and he was having this joy that says he was the only black child in the school. And I said, well, that's nothing to be happy about. I had to explain to him that that is not something we should celebrate. I don't want to be the only black professor in any space at OIC. I don't want to be the only, because somehow we have been tricked to think that we are great when we are the only black. This is some kind of garbage. This space, let me tell you something, Natasha. I'm going to go in topic, off topic a minute, but that's what I do. When I go off topic, I go deeper in topic. That's my signature. Do you know how many of us have been wired to think that there's so little at the top that if I get something, you can get it? So if I become Professor Dr. Campbell, you cannot be Dr. Hunter, you cannot be Dr. Ryan, you cannot be Dr. Michelle, you cannot be Dr. Ashley. I'm going to surprise you. All of us could be doctor. There's enough space for all of us. Look around you and see who are the other 50, 60, 70, 80 doctors. They don't look like us, but there's space for them. So we have to rubbish that idea of being selfish in our dreams, being so desperate that we forget to invite others to dream along. So I was at one of your talk, our community talk. I'm sure by now, Ryan, you may smile because you're gonna hear what I said. Is in the board community talk, there were so many gems that were dropped, but one gem has never left me from that first conversation. Was when that principal says, my job is to carry the water. It has never left me. When I tell you I'm actually writing it into the chapter. I'm gonna give her our credit for it because that's her voice. What that has never left me. My job, she said, my job is to carry the water. And I think about what water means, the sustenance it means, what it means to people. And if we all come to a place, Ashley, where every time we meet up together, we just come to take and draw, who is going to bring the water? If every time you meet, people, I'm going to get very personal, but it's important in the conversation. People say to me, why are you single, Dr. ABC? And I've been honest, I've met so many people who the only interest is, what can I get? Not what can I carry? What can I get? What can I get? I've experienced it in ways that I just have to shake my head. Like, I thought about it. Imagine if we all carry the water. Imagine if we all carry water and pour. When you and I are thirsty, Ashley, when you and I are thirsty, Tommy, we're going to get enough to drink. I see you, Glenda. I see you, Shalaka. When you and I are thirsty, we will have enough to drink because all of us in this group have carried water. It's called community. And that is why it's important for us to learn how to affirm each other. It's important we learn how to work on others' behalf. When a black person, when anybody, I can tell you, anybody asks me to write a recommendation, I do a good job. But sometimes I can tell, not sometimes, all the time, when that person is racialized, I know what that recommendation looks like and what it means. I know. So you have before referenced it, not going to be, yeah, Ryan is nice. He's a good student. Amen. I have to go into that to make sure I big you up in a way that you also can get your dreams. Because I understand what the odds are in our system. So a part of my understanding, who am I without colonization, was also, as I've gone on this trip to Ghana. And this was it. This was the first time when we reached the Black Joy on arrival. I remember we talked about identity and belonging. Going to Africa and going to Ghana, a part of Africa, and seeing things that we know is authentically us and who we are. The little nuances in the street. And I want to read something from you from Hamed 2022. He said the use of the term Black joy is often intended as a way of making space for joy and positive experiences apart from and in opposition to trauma, you said it, Ryan, tragedy, and struggles perpetuated by anti-Black racism and oppression of white supremacy, and the pervasive depictions of Black trauma and tragedy in media discourse. Something to remember, everybody, that this picture is intentional. This picture will get into Google, into my social media, into spaces, and it creates whatever the magic they do in the background to get to a place where we get to see more of this and less of the depictions of tragedy and trauma we see about Blackness. Expressions and acts of Black joy are often encouraged as a way of Black people to fully be themselves and a form of community as a response to systems that devalue them and stifle their self-expression. Who are you without colonization? I could tell you a story. Shalka, of how I went to a school as an award-winning dance choreographer. I have done award-winning dance. I have been in the front page of my newspaper back in Jamaica. Dance again. Years of doing amazing work. National award newspaper. That's one of 7 newspapers that came out in the Bahamian newspaper about the work that I do. Walk into a school, a white teacher right in Toronto is teaching ballet. And he only selects, of course, one handful of people. So I go to the school and I start a dance club. And word got out that Mr. Campbell, the new Black teacher, is having a dance club. And I saw this white teacher in the staff meeting. And he says to me, "Oh, you're the new teacher. I heard you've found a dance club." And I said, "Yes." And he said, "What kind of dance you're doing?" And I said, "I'm doing, cultural dance. I'm doing reggae. I'm doing modern. I'm doing calypso. I'm doing all different, kind of expressions from the Caribbean and other spaces." And he said, "Oh, okay." And he said, "Oh, you're doing that shake up dance," and walked off. As if what I was doing was garbage, because somehow he has also been wired that ballet, the European way, is good dance, everything else. And I worked in that school for 4 months as an LTO. And at the end of my 4 months, I was a part of a Christmas production and I mounted my dance. They still talk about that presentation today. Because who am I without colonization? I discover my power. I discover my worth. I discover my freedom. I discover my dreams. And I invited all those little girls and boys to dance with me. And they were a star in that school. The expression of Black joy on that stage was so noted. People talked about it in a school where the children are Black. And this is a sadness, Ashley. This is a school in TDSB where 95% of the students are Black and racialized and 90% of the staff is white. And those people don't even understand what it looks like to allow racialized and Black kids to freedom dream in a way that the only good thing that that gentleman thought was if I made them do ballet, they would be of some benefit. But Mr. Campbell came to the school and disrupt all that shit. I did say that. I went to the school and disrupt all of that. And Black joy was on that stage in ways that the parents told me thanks in ways. Silver 2022 says Black joy is freedom. Black joy is radical. Black joy to come from systematic equality would change the world. That comes from Octavia, Black artist. And so another part of who we are without colonization is about many parts of our identity. And a big part of our identity is food. I have seen people struggle with food as identity. We have seen that. We have seen how people have been teased and mocked because of their food. We see how food have been given value only when a white person co-opt it. We see it on Food Network. White person goes to somewhere in Asia, somewhere in Africa, and cooks something, and all of a sudden it's on TV, and they give it a different name and think it's okay. And when you go to push back, they try to argue about there's no such thing as appropriation. Yes, there is. Who is benefiting from it? That's not a cultural exchange. I understand what cultural exchange is. This is appropriation and stealing. And when what you do, you devalue other people's. So I remember I was in Ghana for 14 days or 15 days, maybe 15 days. And in 15 days, I cannot remember if I ate anything else other than Ghanaian food. I did not. I did not. But there are people I know who thought this was not good enough for them. And they would drive to find what they call good food. These people were also Black. These are some of the tensions we face and the complexities. Because we are told if it's from Africa, it's not good. If it's from this place, it's less than. If it doesn't look like a European meal with knife and a fork. And as a child growing up, when I see things on TV and they looked pretty, like American food and Italian and all this kind of European food, I thought that was something OMG. I can wait to go to have that. Because you are taught that what you have is less than. And what is really good is what is there. But another thing I want to zero in on is the liquid down there at the bottom, the drink that what we call, back in Jamaica, we call sorrel. And they call it another name there in Ghana, Bissau. I think the name is Bissau. Yeah, Bissau. Yeah, Bissau. Yeah. And when I saw that, thank you, Ashley. When I saw it, Ashley, I said, of course I want to try, because I saw the picture. And when I drank that, I got emotional. It took me home. But I didn't realize it. When I say it took me home, Ashley, it took me to Jamaica. And then I had to catch my breath and realize, no, Andrew, it took you right where it's supposed to take you. It took you home. This is Ghana. My ancestors are from Ghana. Our ancestors in the Caribbean were from that part of Africa. And I get to understand it may not be Ghana, it could be Nigeria, it could be other places nearby, because I learned the story of our ancestors walking days to get to the port in Ghana to be shipped and dragged. But as I look at the things that I love, I've always been a yam person. I must give you a joke, Natasha. I came back from Ghana. When I went to Ghana for the first time, I came back last year, August. I was home one day. The second day I got up and all I wanted was Ghanaian food. And I Googled where in Canada sell Ghanaian food. I never had Ghanaian food before until I got to Ghana. And there's a place in Scarborough. and Uber says you're too far and you have to pay extra money, and I pay extra money, and I ordered the food, the Ghanaian food, that came to my house. I live my best life. Now I drive all the way to Scarborough just to get it. I drive all the way. Come on, traffic. I go all the way to get it. So it's part of who you are. And there's a lot of politics to food. In wrapping up, I want to leave you with a few reminders. As I put this here, the journey to the castle, the use of language, and how they describe the slave dungeon, castle. And I've never understood the concept of taking up space. I'm sure you heard a lot, Ashley. We must take up space, we must take up space, we must take up space. I have my own interpretation of it. So this may not be it, but this is Andrew Campbell's own, DR.ABC, and I want to write about it. When I was in this exact male dungeon, cluster, the space, and the tour guy would explain to us how many people was held there. And he explained to us that they stayed there for days. They would pee there. They would pass their feces there. They would pass any other body fluid there, including in the women's cell, all that menstruation, every single thing. They would have whatever food they throw to them to eat, and then you take them outside, spray them to wash them off. And when I was in there listening to that, it dawned on me how we in this world that is the new world. This Western world, our ancestors, where we come from places as big as Africa, where they try to tell us it's smaller than other places and draw the ridiculous map. This place were big of rivers and waterfalls. I think a place I want to go in Kenya and Zanzibar and Ghana, when you see the waterfalls and the lakes and you see the beauty. Dragged in a place like this, and then dragged to the Caribbean, where you stay in little wooden huts with an entire family and given no space. We were never given space. And so the idea, Ashley, of taking up space has dropped in my heart in a way that is, I don't think I have the words as yet. Maybe when I write this chapter, I still don't have the words, and that is fine. Nobody's going to hurry me to find the right word. I could tell you that. But I can't even explain what it felt like for me to stand there and realize this is why I should take up space. We were never given space. And even today, if you think about academia, think about spaces, we are not given enough space. We're not given space. Many times you have been given a space, and you could realize that everybody wants you to tell them thanks for granted certain access. They're not looking for politeness. They're looking for you to beg, give them that kind of worship. There's a difference between being polite and thankful and worshiping you for giving me a seat at the table, quote unquote. So I want you to see this. They call this a castle, and these were the space our ancestors were held. So when you ask yourself, who are you without colonization? You have to understand. And so we went to this famous place, many of you have heard about it, the door of no return. And we realized there is a way, there's a work to discover who we are. It is needed and it is necessary. So much of who we think we are defined by colonization. So much of what we want to become is measured by colonized standard. So I want to explain to you that we stood there at the door of no return. And a quote from Suggs 2019 says, "It is also triumphant because as descendants, we are returning. And that is very significant in the political climate we are in now." Livingston said, "It is not a mark of shame, but a mark of victory to go back and honor them. If my ancestors could go through all of that, there's no reason why I shouldn't be kicking ass. Who are you without colonization?" I will continue to ask myself in ways that are intentional. And something that is powerful to me is we are still here. Through all of that, we are here living in Black joy. I remember when I came out of the dungeon, and we went to lunch. As we were going to lunch, this picture is of everybody going up the step. And everybody was going up the step to the restaurant, and there were a bunch of boys dancing. They weren't begging anything from me or anything. We were just dancing. And I went down there to join them. Black joy. How do we cultivate that Black joy? How do we sustain that Black joy? How do we protect that Black joy? Does Black joy really need protecting? What is healing for you? And so I want to give you a little thing. I think there's a little piece of that. Let me see if I could find it. We just came out of the dungeon, literally just came out about 5 minutes ago. And they were choreographing the piece that has jumped right in. That's right. That's a teacher. And I leave you with this community. The abolitionist teaching is built on the creativity, imagination. You have gotten this quote already from Bettina Love. And so I leave this with you, my final slide. I want to tell you that story which I'm going to write about. The last day, this picture was taken the last day of my trip. I went to the slave dungeon. We didn't get to do both. We did only one, because after the first one, I was emotionally spent, and I just had enough, and I realized it needs time. I haven't gone back to the second one yet. I'm going to go back. I went back to Ghana. I've been back to Ghana this year. Early this year, I went back for a week, for like 8 days for my own vacation of my birthday. And because of my mom passing away, I pushed back my trip, but I needed that. And I lived 8 days of my best life again, but I'll go back. But the last day of the trip, Natasha, the last day of the trip, we were outside doing a photo, just taking pictures. I love pictures. So I'm taking pictures. So that's me in a beach robe. And the other pictures I can't show you on the lecture. They're on my social media. Oh, I was doing the most. Let's leave it as that. I was doing the most in my beach wear. And right there and then, I'm taking the pictures, that's having a good time. I don't know what happened, but I literally started to cry uncontrollably. I didn't cry at the dungeon. I did not. Right here on the Atlantic Ocean, at the same place where our ancestors were dragged from, I broke down, I cried. And when I was finished, I walked away and I made myself a promise. I said, I will be my ancestors' wildest dream. And so in closing, if you ever wonder certain things I say and I behave and do, you have to understand I have made a commitment to myself, not to you, to the university, or to anyone. I made a commitment to myself to be my ancestors' wildest dream. And I believe I can only do that if I spend quality time understanding who I am without colonization. And if I spend quality time freedom dreaming to continue, listen, not to my choice of word, to continue the emancipation of myself. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Any questions? I'm going to stop the recording there.